Years ago, Nancy Reagan was concerned about drug use among young people in the nation, and so she initiated this campaign, and the campaign had a slogan, and the slogan was,
"Say yes to your life, and when it comes to drugs and alcohol, just say no."
Just say no. Just say no. And they've done research on that campaign and discovered it was a colossal failure. It was a colossal failure. Not only did people, young people, not just say no, they said yes more often. That is, the more we spent on that campaign, in areas where we spent more on that campaign, drug use actually went up. And where they spent less on the campaign, drug use did not go up. The campaign actually encouraged the behavior it was desired to decrease. Now, there's a number of reasons for this. One reason is it served as kind of an advertising program for drugs. In other words, if you're a kid and you're sitting and watching TV and drugs really not a part of your world, and you're watching TV and every night there's these commercials that come on and say, just say no, drugs are all around you, everybody's telling you to say yes. And you think, boy, am I the only one not using drugs? Maybe I ought to try that. They're saying so much about this. I feel like I'm the odd man out. But another reason is something about our soul, and that is we can't just say no. And so we're going to look today at the principle of replacement. Another way of illustrating this is to bring a water bottle to your class and ask the question, if I wanted to get all the air out of this water bottle, how would I do it? Well, you could come up with some fancy vacuum that would seal up the top and so on, or the easy way to do it is just fill it up with water. That is the principle of replacement. So I'd encourage you to look at your passage this week, and before you look at it, you always want to give people something to look for. And this week, I'd encourage you to give your people this thing to look for, and that is, look in this passage where Paul says, take off this and put on this. Don't do this, do this. Look in this passage for examples of principle of replacement. In his book, Lord, Change My Attitude, James MacDonald illustrates this idea of the principle of replacement. He talks about replacing my complaining attitude with a thankful attitude, replacing my covetous attitude with an attitude of contentment, replacing a critical attitude with an attitude of love, replacing a doubting attitude with an attitude of faith, replacing a rebellious attitude with an attitude of submission. And all through the scripture, we find this principle, the principle of replacement, where we overcome evil with good. The first example I found in this is to put off the old self and to put on a new self. The scripture says, Ephesians 4:22 through 24, you were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, and to be made new in the attitude of your mind, to put on the new self created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. There's actually a little fine print on this, put off the old self, and it's well translated by the Holman, HCSB. That's the hardcore Southern Baptist version, as we like to say. And they really got the tense right here. And in this version it says, you took off in the past, and once and for all, you took off your former way of life, the old self, which is corrupted by its deceitful desires, and you are continually being renewed in the spirit of your minds, so that you put on the new self, the one created according to God's likeness, in righteousness and purity of truth. There's two ideas in Scripture. They sound similar in the English language, but they're actually quite different. One is the old man, and every time this phrase, the old man, as it is translated in the Old King James, very literally from the Greek, it is always used with an aorist tense. That's a past tense and a once and for all kind of tense. And then there's another idea, not mentioned in this passage, but mentioned in many other places in Scripture, and that is the flesh. And the big idea is this: the old man is